that's fine. Any apologies?
Only one apology from Noluyolo, who is not feeling well.
Okay, that's fine. We do have an agenda today. The main one is the consideration and adoption of the draft report on the 2020 Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. And then we'll also look at the minutes of the 17th and the 25th of June, 8th and the 9th of July. And then the last item is overview of the 2020 Appropriation Bill. Can we proceed on the basis of that agenda?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That's what we'll do. But before we proceed, I just want to check the support staff members who are here because they've been very much involved with the drafting of this report and throughout our interaction with the different role players. I sometimes think that we do need to put names onto the faces. Support staff members, please introduce yourself and just say who you are and what's your responsibility in the committee. Sfiso.
Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. My responsibility when it comes to drafting the report, that's what you want, Chairperson?
Throughout, not necessarily with the report.
Okay. I'm a current advisor for the committee, providing like content and strategic advice to the committee. And when it comes to drafting this report, I must see to it that structurally it is sound. I'm the one who just drafted the first part of the report, except the public submission. The first part of the report is drafted by me, as well as the findings and recommendations are my responsibilities.
Okay.
Which means in its entirety, except for the public submissions, the report is drafted by myself. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Who's next? Musa? Musa, who else from the support staff is there? Musa, please come. You are muted.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me, Chairperson. Greetings, Chair. Greetings, honorable members. My role as a researcher, Chair, I think it speaks for itself, is to provide research and advice to the committee based on the findings of the research. And our input into the report, I think it's the analysis that we do prior to the drafting of the report, the decision to invite or which stakeholders invite. As for instance, the presentation that we'll be providing to you today about which departments we need to focus on and on the adjustment appropriation bill. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, who next? It's there. Nosipho, are you there?
Unfortunately, Chairperson, I received a message this morning that she is not feeling well. She is asthmatic, so yeah, she's seeing the doctor. Thank you.
Okay. Who else is there? Funeka, are you there? Oh, I see Advocate Jenkins, please come in. Unmute and Advocate Jenkins. I've just requested, yeah.
Yes, and I'm here, Chair. Following. Thank you. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues and guests. Yeah, Frank Jenkins is my name. I'm a senior legal advisor. Good morning. I'm senior legal advisor at Parliament, and for a great part of my time at Parliament, I've been supporting finance and appropriations committees. I'm not always hands-on with the report drafting and so forth. My job is more to vet report if it's necessary, or to advise the chair or members on legal issues pertaining to the procedure of the budget going through the various committees. As you know, my speciality is the Money Bills Amendment Procedure Act, which I've been involved with ever since we started drafting that. It's a pleasure to be here, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Advocate. Is there anybody I'm leaving out? Funeka, are you there?
Sheikh Imam is here, Chair.
Welcome, Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair. Because I belong to so many different committees, it makes it very difficult, Chair.
No problem, but thanks for coming. But thank you very much, support staff. I just thought it's important that time and again we should know who's behind us and helping the committee. I think when the other colleagues are there, next time we'll also have to introduce them. But thank you very much. This takes us to the report of the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. Honourable members, this is basically the collection of what we have been doing from the day the bill was referred to us. So we have engaged many stakeholders, we have had discussions, we have got recommendations. So that's basically what the report it's about. We're not debating yet. I think the debate is tomorrow. So honourable members can just hold on to their guns. Today it's about us saying, is that what we're doing and is that we are recommending. There was a draft report which was sent to members, did make some amendments and additions. You'll see that there is the latest report which was sent to us this morning has got we also usually refer the report to the Treasury just to ensure that, especially around the numbers, we were agreeing that these are the numbers that they presented to us. So I'll then request Darren to take us through the report and refer us to the amendments which have been proposed, and then we proceed from there. Darren?
Chairperson?
Yes, Darren.
I'm trying to share my screen, but I seem to be struggling. I don't know if you want me to continue so members can check on the email that I sent in the morning.
Let me, all members, can you just access your emails now? Is there anyone who's having a problem about accessing his or her email?
Chairperson, just I'm not able to see anything on my email. What time did it come in? I don't see anything new this morning, except other stuff from Parliament.
I've sent it.
And is that what we?
Oh,
8:25.
Yeah. Yes.
See that one coming through now. Thank you, Chairperson.
But I think there it comes now, Darren. I can see the report on the screen. So please take us.
Chairperson, the page 1, who is sharing this thing now? I don't think this is the one from Treasury Chair. I'm not sure, because it's supposed to have track changes.
I guess. Yeah, it has got some amendments and additions. But let me check, honourable members. Is there anyone who's having a difficulty in accessing the report that was sent to him or her this morning, so that we can proceed? You'll see that it has got track changes.
Yeah. Chairperson, Dennis Joseph here. I'm looking at the report, but normally if you say track changes, I would think it's highlight or color coded or something.
If you go to just go to page 2, that's where you'll see the first change, which is there. Do you have that? You'll see that there's a
Chairperson, can I just ask Darren if that is the report, or is it the same report of the previous one? Is it the correct report we received, Darren?
you'll see that there's a
Mr. Joseph,
the latest report which was
we
sent
sent
this
the draft yesterday along with the link and the other documentation. And in the morning, after we received the inputs from Treasury, I sent another report. So Chairperson said that we should rather look at the one that I sent in the morning, so that the members can see the track changes when we go through the report.
You see the problem, Chair, with the track changes.
Yes.
Can I come in? The
Please.
problem with track changes is that you must download it from your email before it shows.
Yeah.
If you don't download it from your email, it won't show the track changes. If you're reading it directly from your email, it does that sometimes.
But Honorable Nkwankwa, but yours, can you see the changes that have been made? Just
download it. When I just opened it from the email, it doesn't show the track changes, but when you download it, it does.
I just opened it and I'm having it, but I just want to check whatever way. All members, can you access this from your refer the report to the treasurer from your computers, especially around the numbers, able to see it's in red. These are the numbers. Able to see the changes. If you can just go to page 2, I'll then request Darren to take us through the.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Oh,
yeah.
That's the one, Chair.
Okay. All members who are having it on the screen now.
Chairperson, can I?
Chairperson, I can see it on my laptop screen now. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. But we're also having it on the screen. Darren, a proposal.
Yes, Chair.
And then please,
all right, Chair.
From there.
On the first page, Chair, is the introduction. It's straightforward. On page 2, there's the overview of the bill in response to COVID-19 pandemic, and then you'll see there Treasury made a technical amendment there. If we go further down, Chair.
No.
Okay.
Just go back to that change that you.
Okay.
Go up.
All right.
Yeah. Talk to that change.
Page 2. Yes, Chairperson. Next to excluding conditional grants, they're proposing that we delete the end.
Yeah.
And we say 100.9 billion is reprioritized in the adjustments budget, comma, including through, and then
yes,
we list all the changes, Chair. And then if we go further down, screen, but I seem to be struggling. I don't know.
That was page 2, eh?
That was page 2, Chairperson. You can check on the email. If we go further down, nothing on page 3. Struggling. I don't know if you want me to. Nothing on page 4. On page 5, Chair. On the email. The email that HIV and AIDS life skills education grant, Chair. There's a comment that training can still be funded from the grant as the conditions relating to training are still in the grant framework. So some of the planned training may still be implemented, and not all planned training as in the draft report. So we just took out the all planned, and we just say planned training sessions. And then, Chair, on the school's infrastructure backlog grant, they deleted the total.
Okay.
Further down, Chair, further down, they deleted total and they said a net of 540 million. Yes, Chair?
You are too fast.
Yeah.
Am I too fast?
Yeah, you are too fast. Just up a little bit. Yeah.
All right, Chair. Okay, schools infrastructure backlogs grant a net of 540 million. And not a total. As you can see on the right-hand side, Stephen is saying that 600 million was added for this purpose, but another 60 million was reduced from the other projects. Is that fine, Chair?
That was page 5.
Yes,
now,
Chair. And if you go further down, 4.3, health, on the health conditional grants, on the NHI insurance grant, Chair, Treasury deleted the components that we specified there, and they said it's mainly from the health facility revitalization component, and they deleted the what we added because they're saying that 200 million is reduced from unallocated funds within the component. Is that fine, Chair? Can I go to the next page?
Right.
Okay, on 4.5, Chair, bullet 2, bullet 2, mass participation and sports development grant. If you go down to the third line, they are saying COVID-19 lockdown and provinces will use funds from cancelled competitions and not for. Further down, Chair, to the transport conditional grants, provincial roads maintenance grants.
Easy, Darren.
Okay, a total of 1.8 billion reduction in the provincial roads maintenance grant, consequently planned maintenance project. It's the grant funds maintenance and not the construction of new roads. So they just rectified that one, Chair. Further down, Chair, on page, which page is this now? Page 7, changes to local government conditional grants allocations. It's urban settlements development grant and not urban settlements conditional grant. Sorry. And then a total of 1.1 billion reduction in the direct component of the urban settlements development conditional grant. And this will result in delays in planned projects. Funds for the upgrading of the informal settlements through secure tenure and provision of basic services have not been reduced. So they are explaining on the right-hand side, the amount ring-fenced for the informal settlement upgrading have not been changed. Cities are expected to invest the same or more on provision of basic services in informal settlements and reduce spending on other projects. Further down, Chairperson, there's Integrated National Electrification Program grant. It's just they just included the program, Chair. And then a total reduction of 500 million. They deleted the second reduction. All right. Nothing on the submissions. All right, Chair, if we go further down to page 19 on findings.
Page 9,
Page 19, yes. 7.10. In the second sentence, Chair, they just rectified the view, the committees of the view in small cap that Kokta and Saga should actively assist a municipality where there is evidence of capacity constraints. So it's just a technical amendment there, Chair. And if we go to recommendations, in 8.3, they are basically asking, does the committee want a comprehensive report in respect of the amendment bill that aim to fund the response to COVID-19 pandemic, or does it want a forward-looking report on how the 2021 Division of Revenue is aligned to the pronouncements on the infrastructure investments? So that's a question that the committee should be answering, and then we'll be able to make the necessary amendment. And then that's that, Chair. I don't know if Sifiso wants to add something. Thank you.
Sifiso. Sifiso.
Chairperson, just want to ask Darren, just repeat that last point, please. Thank you.
The last point, it's the last one, Mr. Joseph. on that recommendation, it's a question from them, because the recommendation isn't specifying if we want a comprehensive report on how the bill responds to the COVID-19 pandemic, or whether we want a forward-looking report on how the 2021 Division of Revenue is aligned to the pronouncements made on infrastructure investments. So basically, the committee needs to decide whether it wants a report focusing on COVID-19 only, or whether it wants a forward-looking report. Thank you, sir.
Chairperson.
Yes.
Well, I don't have much additions. I agree with the technical additions that have been made by our colleagues from National Treasury. Steve, we thank him very much. But on the last point that Darren is talking about, I think from my side, that's the point that we need to pay closer attention to, because that point relates to the pronouncement by the president to say we are going to invest in infrastructure both to stimulate economic growth and job creation. But now the understanding is that, that point seeks to get clarity from National Treasury to say if the president say we are going to invest in infrastructure, and now we understand that this budget seeks to address COVID-related issues, but having said that, if the president say we are going to invest in infrastructure to stimulate growth, and now we see a lot of infrastructure budget being cut, even though we are responding for COVID, is that not a contradictory statement?
Correct.
So that's what we seek clarity from National Treasury. We don't say specifically what's their plan going forward, but we are saying if you cut infrastructure budget in relation to what the president is always saying about infrastructure, what are we saying? We want those kind of clarities, basically, even though we understand that money has to come somewhere to respond to this COVID-19, but we need, I think that point seeks clarity from National Treasury. If the president says this and this happens, what's the position? Thanks, Chair. That's what we seek clarity on in that point.
Honorable Sheikh.
Chairperson, Mlenzana.
Okay. No, it's Honorable Sheikh is on the
Thank you very much, Chair. And I must agree with my colleague. It's actually contradicting each other. But very importantly, Chair, and I don't know whether you have dealt with this, in my absence or so. A lot of these contracts, infrastructure that's going to be delayed, maintenance of contracts and things. And we know there's been a weakness in the entire system when it came to variation orders and escalation. Have we ever considered the escalation with these contracts that might have already been awarded? Because it should have been awarded almost a year before you're going to actually implement. Now, I'm worried whether we've taken that into consideration. Is National Treasury taking that into consideration, that there might be a major problem with all these contracts that may have to now be delayed and things with escalation? And what impact is that going to have on us? Thank you. I'll just stop there, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Mlenzana.
Thanks, Chairperson. To some extent, Honorable Sheikh Iman partly covers me. It's just a question of approach. Because one would say, Chair, it's not that we are naive of the fact that we are focusing on COVID-19. But now what we are saying there, we are saying, whilst focusing on COVID-19, look at economic recovery through infrastructure development. I wanted to get me. So then, that is why we are saying we cannot continue promoting these delays in terms of infrastructure development. Yes, correct, Sifiso, that we know that there isn't going to be money coming from somewhere, but within, why not within the same budget, look into infrastructure development so that at the same time you address this question of economic recovery. I think this is what we were saying, Chair.
Honorable Nkwankwa. Honorable Nkwankwa.
Thank you, Chair. No. Honorable Mlenzana in particular covered me because it centered my point, centered around the concern around the delays when it comes to infrastructure development. Because remember, the priority or issue that we should be focusing on is what I think we also mentioned last week as a committee, to say, how do we reignite economic growth? How do we create some activity in the economy? But you can't do that without a plan, properly planned and funded infrastructure development program, especially when you're talking about the poor economies, the rural ones and so on. But I think, Chair, I don't know, perhaps I'm okay with National Treasury. I think Sheikh Imam, also Honorable Imam rather, also covered my point because then it was about escalations. But I think I'm okay with Treasury correcting, say, making technical changes to our report when it comes to figures. For example, where we might have made a mistake, or say the correct terminology or tagging of a specific grant. But I'm not okay with Treasury coming to our recommendations to change grammar and capital letters. And that's not their business, right? Because tomorrow then they are going to tell us how we should write our recommendations, including our observations. We shouldn't allow them to go in there at all, unless they are changing a specific figure or the tagging of a particular issue. Thank you, sir.
Chairperson, Joseph.
Honorable Joseph.
Chairperson, oh, sorry, there was another member before me, Chairperson.
No, speak, Honorable Joseph.
Oh, thank you, Chairperson. I think the when it comes to the end under the recommendation, I think we should be guided by the introduction of the report. The report deals with the amendment of the Division of Revenue, which is a specific reason why there is an amendment or an adjustment to where we are now dealing with COVID-19. And I do understand the President's view on infrastructure, because initially we, and even taking the money away, because there is obviously going to be a delay or underspending due to COVID-19, because even if the money was allocated, it is clear that that money will not be spent in the current financial year. So it's understanding that money is shifted to deal with the crisis of COVID-19. So all I'm saying is that whatever terminology and phrases we use, we should be guided by the introduction of that we are dealing with a crisis, and therefore there's an adjustment to the Division of Revenue. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, honorable members, Honorable Kaiso.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair. Yeah, I also want to agree with my colleague there. You know, when it comes to infrastructure and growth of the economy, we should send a very clear message to the public out there. I think the Treasury should be in a position, because we can't go zigzagging around that message to the public, because I want to believe that's exactly what the public wants to hear around that. So the Treasury must assist us to clarify that, so that we are sure what we are now referring to when it comes to that. So that, because the way it's being captured, it doesn't comfort one quite well when it comes to what confidence are we sending to our people in what the President has said. I think there has to be a clarity from the Treasury. Thank you very much.
Any other honorable member?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Any other honorable member?
Yes, it's me then, Chairperson.
Okay. Okay.
Chairperson, honorable members will appreciate, I hope, all of you, the challenge that we do have with infrastructure in the country. Particularly when you look at the funds which are reprioritized or taken away from infrastructure, they relate to maintenance. And we have got a history with maintenance. We are experiencing load shedding from ISCOM today because we were told that scheduled maintenance were not done properly. So if we then now continue to adopt an approach that seeks to delay maintenance of key infrastructure, you might find that now the problem that we are experiencing with ISCOM, and then it gets to other sectors of the economy, because we are delaying the maintenance of key government infrastructure. So we don't want to traverse that road. That's why, honorable members, if you look at 8.2 in our recommendations, we recommend that the Minister of Finance should allow National Treasury to present an infrastructure recovery plan to say, as much as we are dealing with COVID-19, we don't want to traverse the ISCOM road again in other government infrastructure. Because when you delay the maintenance, you might have cost escalation. And then we'll end up not affording these things. That's why we are pleading with National Treasury on the infrastructure budget to say, look, we understand there is no money, but us not having money does not necessarily mean that we don't have to maintain the infrastructure that we have. We've got an ISCOM history where we are back at load shedding now because of poor maintenance of government infrastructure. That's all we are saying, Chairperson.
Okay, honorable members, I just let you vent out. I didn't want to start the discussion that this is about the report, which says what we have done and so on. So now, I think what we then need to do, the things that are two parts, the observation part. I think the observation, just trying to sum you up, we are saying you are observing that there have been cuts in infrastructure and its maintenance, right? And the implications thereof, that's one. But then we should recommend. So I think we are then, there is a recommendation that Sfiso is referring to, right? And then saying that will have to be presented to the committee, because that's basically what we are doing now. With all these presentations and so on, that's what we're observing, that there have been reductions with negative consequences, for instance, to infrastructure, right? And two, then want to recommend based on that, what are we then saying? And then what I hear us saying is that a National Treasury should come and with whoever is responsible for infrastructure. I think sometimes we always say, I think in National Treasury, but I think let's also add the rider with whoever is responsible for infrastructure, so that they can come and give us a fuller picture of what is happening, for instance, to maintenance. So there are two elements to this: is the observation, which is the observation that we see that there are reductions in infrastructure and infrastructure maintenance, and then we're making a concrete proposal, and the proposal is the one that we still want to interact with them. But I think you also want to add that when it comes to MTBPS, would also like to see that there have been a response to what the honorable members are raising as far as infrastructure and infrastructure maintenance is concerned. Am I summing you correctly? Am I summing you up correctly? Honorable Sheikh? Honorable Peters? Good morning.
Yeah, fine.
Good morning, Chairperson, and apologies. I realized into the other meeting that I'm at the wrong venue. So I quickly came back. This is the problem of being in many committees. Thank you very much, Chairperson. And like I said in the beginning, my apologies. But Chairperson, I think when we are dealing with the recommendations, we should, like you said, probably in response to Sfiso's input, let us look. Let me go back to what Honorable Kwankwa said. I fully agree with you. Treasury should not redraft the report for us. They must correct their part of the story, which is the figures and the money that they have allocated. But when it comes to recommendations, it is our responsibility. I would fully support the call that Treasury brings us a comprehensive report. So I think with regard to recommendations, let's stick to that. Let's not debate on whether we want a new forward-looking or backward-looking, whatever. Comprehensive means backward and forward and intermediate. So Treasury must bring us that report. But we must also be cognizant of the fact that Treasury did brief us with regard to the areas of infrastructure where money was taken away. We raised that concern as committee members, and they gave indication that the money that has been taken away, it's money that was not spent. And I think it is important that we look at those departments in particular where money was taken primarily because of lack of spending. Basic education, with the challenges that they are faced with. human settlement, and in particular water and sanitation, with the challenges that we have with regard to water. I would support FISO with regard to being conscious of how ESCOM ended up where we are, especially in view with the water situation. So we need, as this committee, to actually be proactive and track those particular departments. And I don't know whether we can add it into this report, but in our engagements in this week and next week with these departments, we need to literally use the inputs of Treasury with regard to their decision to be able to look into those areas. But also let's remember, the President made commitments about infrastructure. Which departments are responsible for infrastructure development in this country? We need to be able to look at whether the money in those departments actually responds to the call of the President on focus on infrastructure. Chairperson, you remember our concerns with the money that was taken from Eastern Cape with regard to your public transport infrastructure grant. That in itself tells you that PE, Buffalo City and others are not going to get the reavires very soon, primarily because the money has not been spent. And it tells you that municipalities and provinces, as well as departments, don't plan. And that's why in the Western Cape, there would be a decision that money must revert to surrendered to Treasury because they are not going to be able to spend it. It is this type of things that will actually work against the pronouncements of the President with regard to infrastructure development. Thank you, Chairperson.
Before I let you go, Honorable Peters, just formulate a recommendation there on what we have said, because I hear, for instance, that we have, I would then saying that in our recommendations, because that's what we will, that the departments which have not been able to spend their infrastructure grants must appear before the committee. Is that the, can we do that?
Agreed.
Yeah. So that's a concrete one that we're making, because we are correct, honorable members. Sometimes we end up running with Treasury, but people who are not spending money are somewhere. Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, I think I have an equal problem when we're talking about infrastructure, and the same thing with urban settlement development grant here. It's exactly the same problem that we got now. Many of these metros particularly are not spending that. And if you look at the condition of how people are living, particularly in the metros, if you take last financially, the amount of money that was underspent in this particular sector by the Western Cape government. Now that's a serious problem, because again, that hampers economic development, it hampers service delivery, it hampers the quality of life that you want to improve of the people here. And that is why we have the socio-economic challenges that we have on the ground. So I think we need to give equal attention to this underspending, because underspending, Chair, and taking away money because you're underspending is not the solution to the problem. You need to ensure that they spend that money appropriately and deliver those services. So all I'm requesting, Chair, is that we give equal attention to this urban development settlement grant as well, as much as we give to infrastructure, because both of them have the capacity to create more jobs and improve the quality of life. And lastly, Chair, I don't know whether I'm out of order with this particular one. I've never heard, and maybe I'm wrong, whether there's been any savings in terms of the nutrition program in the schools when schools have not been open for such a long period of time. I haven't seen any figures, and I may be wrong. Sorry about that, Chair.
Honorable Sheikh.
That's a nice one.
Honorable Sheikh, I do two things. What is the observation that you want us to add here? That's number one. And number two, I wanted to say, what are we recommending? Help us, because we are now drafting the last report. Obviously, there is definitely an observation that you are making, and based on that, there's a proposal or recommendation that you are making.
Yeah, can I come in then, Chair?
Please.
Yes, indeed, Chair. I think that, like saying with infrastructure, which is very important now to boost the economy and equally, we are saying that because some of the metro and municipalities and governments are not spending their money on the urban settlement development, I think that what we should be saying is indeed we should not be taking from there, but rather enhancing the capacity and making sure that these people spend appropriately, because Can you imagine with a high unemployment rate and with COVID-19 impact, what is going to happen now if you're going to take away that and these people are not going to spend money in those sectors, which is going to affect the people's quality of life. So indeed, I'm saying no, it's counterproductive to take away from particular areas where there is the opportunity to create or have economic development. And urban settlement development grant is one sector, I believe, that indeed we should not be also considering like infrastructure development, because the president, when he talks about infrastructure, it's exactly the same thing when it comes to this urban settlement development grant, particularly for the metros, because of people moving in. More people are now going to move into those metros because they're going to get desperate at the moment. So my suggestion is, or recommendation is this, that we need a real look lens of that, because we need to rather strengthen the capacity rather than taking away from this.
Thank you, Darren. I hope you heard exactly what Honorable Sheikh Imam is saying. He's basically saying that we are also recommending that rather than moving funds which are not performing, from sense urban settlement grant, you rather increase or make sure that capacity is developed to spend those funds, because at the end of the day, people who end up suffering are the people who are supposed to be recipients of that grant. So we'll say basically to try and make the system more efficient in ensuring that that grant is being spent for what it was initially meant for. Honorable Kaiso, am I right, Honorable Sheikh? Can you leave with that?
Yes.
Much for that, Chair.
Thank you.
But off record, Chair, I'd like you to tell me how much we saved on that nutrition program for those months, Chair. Thanks.
Yeah. Again, on the perhaps on the observations, is that nothing was said about the savings that we got from nutrition?
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Honorable Kaiso?
No, I'm covered with your summary.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Honorable Sifiso?
Yes, Chairperson. I just want to plead with honorable members. I hear what they're saying.
But I know to talk about these things, you become too emotional. Be brief and exactly what.
Yeah, I'll be brief, Chairperson. Because honorable members, you will remember that just recently we've made some of these recommendations, probably, unless you advise us otherwise. Otherwise, I believe that some of the recommendations on infrastructure, we've already made them in the division of revenue, the original one. Like on the education infrastructure, there are reports, it's over 60 days now. That report indicated that we need a report with the different ministries on infrastructure 60 days after the adoption of that report. Probably I will suggest that with some of these recommendations, we might have to begin to follow what we recommended in the original division of revenue around infrastructure as well. Because we've made a lot. If you notice correctly, the grants which have been cut now in response to COVID are the grants which have been cut in the original division of revenue. And these are the same grants where we've made recommendations on the original division of revenue. Thank you, Chairperson. I'm just reminding them.
Okay. I would request the support staff to follow up on those things and bring them before the committee to say we need to follow up on this. We're in this. You remember next week or Friday that I said we must also look at what we have done, and I think those things must come up from that report. Agreed, Sfiso, can you live with that?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other member would like to say something?
Yeah. Chairperson, Dennis here. I just want clarity on in the same paragraphs 8.2 and 8.3. I just want clarity on the last sentence of that two paragraphs. On why particular we're saying that this report should be submitted to the committee before tabling of the 2020 medium. I see it's the last sentence of 8.2 and the last sentence of 8.3. I just want I just want clarity on why it specifically stated so in the report. Because in my opinion, we would always accept the report long before October, if October, November is the next medium-term budget policy statement. Just want clarity on that. Thank you.
Karen?
Chairperson.
Yes.
Yes. The reason why we said just before the MTPPS is just that we thought probably it will be sufficient time for National Treasury to do a thorough work on this and come back to the committee and report. So rather than say 60 days and then they end up doing like just for compliance, we felt that before the MTPPS, which is October, we are in July already, it will be sufficient time for them to do a legitimate exercise and report to the committee. Otherwise, if we give them just 60 days, they might comply for the sake of compliance, but you find that the work that has been done is not up there. So we felt that it's sufficient time.
Okay, thank you. Honorable.
Person?
Yes, Honorable. Yes,
yeah.
please.
No, I note even 8.6. It also says that same point in that last sentence. My question is, could we not take it all together and make it just one recommendation to all the infrastructure development reports, or all recommendations that we are making? Should we not just make it one recommendation reflecting on the whole of the report that we want Treasury to respond to within 60 days? I don't have a problem with the fact that it's repeated, but I'm just asking whether we should make that report stronger by one recommendation for the whole of everything that needs to be done. Thank you.
No. Honorable Judge, I think it's better if, I think for me it's more about emphasizing each and every one of them. I don't think there's any harm on that. I'll plead that let's live with it.
Okay, Chair, thank you.
Chairperson.
Who's that?
Mlenza.
Honorable Mlenzana.
Chair, on top of what you are raising, I think separating this as put here would also assist us. Like I would say in Gesposa, that before we engage, we would then say, what about this particular one that we said it should be addressed? So that we should always knock sense and not be generic. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Mlenzana. Honorable Sheikman.
Chair, I'm just, if you can just double check whether the numbering is correct, Chair. It looks like to me the numbering is incorrect.
Let's see.
Because when I look at it, it looks like 8, then you go to 7.1, 7.2, exactly what the 6. If you can just check if the numbering is correct.
Okay, guys, can you check the numbering? Let's just make sure that the numbering is proper.
Chairperson, the numbering looks fine on my side, but we'll double check before we ATC, Chair. We'll double check everything. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You see where it says 7 committee findings and observations, then it goes down to say 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, going down there. Then it says 8 recommendation, then it goes 7.1, 7.2.
Chairperson, it's fine on my side, so I don't know where that is coming from.
It's also fine on my side.
Honorable Sheikh.
Chair, yes. I think Honorable Sheikh Imam has been sabotaged somehow. Probably sitting with the wrong report.
And I suspect UDM on that one, Honorable Sheikh.
No, we're innocent.
No, that's fine. Let's just double check that the numbering is proper. Okay. And I'll also request that the final report, the one that we are going to adopt, is also important. That just send it again back to us for our own records, just for our own records, not for anything else.
Agreed, Chair. I will also underline all the changes, Chair.
Right.
So that the members know exactly. Okay.
Darren. there's some changes that I proposed that are already in here.
Chairperson, no, I didn't get a chance to include those, but I can read them,
please,
for the purposes of the meeting, Chair.
Yes.
Chair, you are asking that we just check our SS and our and etc. And then on SALGA, you are saying that you're not sure how exactly we should put it, but it should not just be regular meetings between Treasury and SALGA, but we are looking for a workshop of some sort where they identify issues which they, all these issues that they usually bring to us. I think you mean SALGA, all those issues that SALGA bring to us and then report to us before the to BPS and tell us what they agreed upon. Your third point is we should also include that the committee is concerned about the reports that there are private companies who are claiming UIF on behalf of workers but do not pass it on. I don't know whether that belongs to this report or to the adjustments appropriation report that we will be doing later. And then further on, Chair, you're saying committee considers that as defrauding both the state and workers, NT should report what has been done about those people who are defrauding the UIF. Again, I'm not sure if it's relevant for this report or for the adjustments appropriation. And then your last point is we urge all spheres of government to ensure that intended beneficiaries receive what is due to them and corruption be punished irrespective of who is involved. Those are your 4 points, Chair. Committee should just decide where exactly we should put them. Thank you.
Chairperson?
Yes, Honorable Joseph.
Thank you. I just want to ask Darren on page 3. Chair, it's not about, I think, hear me out, please.
No.
It's about spacing the work. It's a different point.
Okay. No. I just
sure.
No. I just wanted to say, please just hold on. Just hold on to that, and allow. There are things that he has raised, so I don't want them to be lost in the process. Just hold on. I'll come back to you. Okay. Thank you. Well, let me hear one, just to strengthen this one. Year in, year out, SALGA comes to us and they come and complain about what's supposed to be dealt with. For instance, what should be coming to them and so on and so forth, and some issues that they don't agree with, and then they bring those things to us. But what is very clear is that from listening to them, that they never give themselves time. Not during the budgetary process, not as part of Budget Council, where they sit down, especially with the Minister of Finance. That's what I'm proposing. That can they please sit down, the Minister of Finance and the Minister of COGDA and SALGA, and thresh out all these issues, right? And then they come and tell us, obviously there are things that they may not agree on, but we want just to get an indication that they do talk about these things rather than coming to us and they expect us to deal with the things that they should have dealt with the executive. So a proposal is that we are proposing a meeting between SALCA, excuse me, SALCA, COCTA, and the Minister of Finance to look at the issues that have been raised, and then they appraise the committee. So that's what I'm proposing. Can we agree with that?
Yes, Chair. I support it.
Yes,
Okay.
agreed, Chairperson.
So yeah, that's one. Darren, another one is the question of dealing with corruption at all levels of government. So they must deal with corruption. I think we agree with that. Agreed?
Yes,
Agreed.
Chairperson.
Honorable Mlenzana.
I don't have words in my mind right now, but I would suggest that perhaps 2 or 3 words be added. We have been talking corruption. If in a word or 2 we could be giving some guidance based on what you said before, that we are not just appropriating money and not following it and not monitoring it. But I don't have something right now. But if it can be thought through.
Yeah. Who wants to help us just to add on what Honorable Mlenzana is saying? Okay. But there was something like, I'm just thinking aloud, that where we also call upon the portfolio committees to also follow up on some of these things, because they affect certain departments, and those departments have portfolio committees. I don't know how we add, but I would like to add something to that effect. For instance, even if you look at these grants that are not being used, they belong to certain portfolio committees. So I think if we're just something that to call upon them to make sure that these things, when you appropriate money, the money is being used for what is intended to. I mean, what the man was intended for. Can we live with that?
Yes, Chairperson, it will be fine with
Chair.
And that's
Chair.
it. Yes, I remember.
Sorry, I'm struggling with my camera, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, I hear you on strengthening it on committees and so forth.
Right.
As well, I think what I propose, what we can do after we have put it down the recommendation, all of the flagged committees that we have found it sort of some point of corruption in, we send a letter to the portfolio chairpersons as well for our backup as well, that those committees are in fact looking into these flagged cases, not just as a recommendation, because now we're going to put it as a recommendation and we'll say these committees will actually go back and reflect on our report. So I'm just proposing that from our committee as well, we send a letter. You can, between the chairs, address a letter to them to sort of strengthen and issues to be into their portfolio. Because I understand we won't be able to do everything in all committees, but the ones that we do flag, I think we can do it, send them letters and so forth to look into, so that the committee itself handles some of the cases. Thank you, Chair.
Agreed. Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we're on the same issue of corruption and things. I don't know if we could also recommend that Treasury put in measures at the moment while we're busy with this procurement bill and things. put in some stringent conditions or mechanisms in terms of procuring, Chair. I was in the police committee the other day, Chair, and they gave us a breakdown, all three structures of the police. One company was charging them 1,950 rand for a 5-liter of sanitizer. On the same breakdown, lower down, another company was charging you 493 rand for the same 5-liter. So I'm thinking, can we not ask while the procurement bill is being dealt with and things to try and deal with the issue of corruption, and that is where we're losing a lot of money. It's estimated, Chair, we're losing 40% on goods and services in this country as a result of tender fraud, not value for money. So I don't know if Treasury can put in in the interim, some stringent measures of some price control to be able to see that, that they are paying prices that are market related and things so that.
Agreed. I think let's have that. Let's have that. Honorable Joseph, can I allow you at a point? Sorry for holding you up.
Thank you, Chairperson. My request was to Darren on page 3. Just if we can, the second paragraph where the bullet point starts, if we can just shift it one line up so that we can get the final totals, the table schedule 1, the final line that is on page 4, so that we get it onto page 3 as well, that it adds these were the figures, the other at the end of page 3. So it's much easier for reading. Thank you, Chair.
That's fine, Chair. We'll sort all those things out before we send it for ATC, all the line spacing and all of that.
Thank you, honourable members. I think we have, yes, Darren.
So are we adding that last point from Mr. Sheikh in the recommendations that Treasury puts stringent conditions?
Yeah. Yes, we are.
When dealing with the public procurement bill. All right.
But you can just note up there where we are noting that it has come to our attention that on these things we are being charged exorbitant prices around that, and obviously in the recommendation there should be a recommendation based on that.
Chair.
Okay. Honourable members, is there an honourable member?
Chairperson, just
Honourable Peters.
Chairperson.
Yes, Honourable Peters.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. On the same issue of the exorbitant charges that the companies are charging government entities with regard to whatever is being procured, whilst we are waiting on the procurement bill, I think it is also important, Chairperson, that as the committee, after this meeting, the Chairperson must release a statement, because there's an issue of the quality of the products, like the quality of sanitizers, the cost of the masks, as well as the cost of the sanitizers and everything else that companies are cashing in. We need to also emphasize the need for government to blacklist those companies that are ripping off entities of the state like this, because if we don't do that, this thing is going to exacerbate. I'm sure you would have seen the issue of the state funerals, about 76 million for 3 funerals. That in itself tells you, and the company says, we gave them the service they wanted. So, I mean, it's like whether we charge 100 million or not, but if you want a service, we'll give it to you, whether that service is that amount. But I think, Chairperson, a statement from this committee that we cannot forever appropriate monies that are being wasted.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's talk.
Yeah, supported, Chair.
Yeah, I think let's talk to the statement, but Honourable Peters, I think let's have that as a recommendation. The question of, in fact, I think it talks to defrauding of the state. I'll tell you, because there's also a technicality. Somebody is not doing his or her work somewhere. If I come to you and say, I'm selling the bottle of water for 100 rands, and you decide on the other side with your eyes wide open that we are buying this bottle of water with 100 rands, but there's somebody who's selling the very same bottle of water for 10 rands. So who's guilty there? Because there's definitely, if you decide I give you the price and you still continue and procure, I'll tell you that mostly in those instances, you find that there's some form of collusion between the buyer, the seller, and the buyer, right? But the person who has got the responsibility to reject my offer is a government official. So I don't know, Honorable Peters, how do you want to?
They don't care.
Hmm?
Yes,
So,
Chairperson.
Yeah.
I think in the statement you should also raise those particular issues, that we are conscious of the fact that our supply chain managers or the people who procure are actually sleeping on duty, for a lack of a better word, and are in cahoots or in collusion with the suppliers who are ripping off government. So both sides, the one who procures and the one who sells, they're equally wrong.
Okay, yes. But let's also have that again in the report, right? As an observation that what happens, and we end up not getting value for money, and the recommendation that Honorable Peters is talking about. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Chair, when I questioned the department at SAPS on this issue, they came up with something else, the CFO, Chair. He also said that their hands were tied because of national regulations. And he admitted that some of the service providers are taking us for a ride. So I think we're going to need to at some point check what are these regulations that are limiting these CFOs and things, giving them difficulty in the different departments that they have to procure from certain people. And that's what they highlighted in the last meeting that we had on Friday.
Yeah. Thanks. Honorable. Yes.
Honorable Matafa.
Honorable Matafa, please come in.
No, thank you, Chair. Given what Comrade Peters is raising and what Honorable Imam is saying, I tend to disagree with that argument that legislation prohibits CFOs to actually intervene in such instances. I think it's in the MFMA. It also allows the accounting officer to look for value for money in terms of procurement of goods and services. Amongst these efforts that they can take, it includes directly negotiating with service providers. So there is no way that legislation prohibits them. Actually, it empowers them. Maybe what we need to do is just to find that piece of legislation where it speaks to that. And the second part is that by law, every municipality has a point in case is required to have a supply chain policy, which is reviewed annually. And in that policy, you can include a clause that speaks to that where a price is above market-related price, the accounting officer is empowered to negotiate directly with the providers to ensure that value for money is derived and no one is actually ripping the system off. So with that, Chair, I agree fully with what Comrade Peters is raising. Maybe it's important that that piece of legislation is lifted, and then maybe we look into it and share it with Darren to see further how can we factor it into our recommendations as far as the report is concerned. Thank you, Chair.
And Matafa, just before Robert Jones comes in, the legislation which regulates procurement is PFA. FA price is so important as it stands now, it's 90-10. So this thing of somebody who's charging an arm and a leg and saying that there's something which is prohibiting him or her from, I don't think, in fact, let's not even go there. And two, I must still see somebody who's going to be punished that he decided to save the money of the state and procured within the rules and so on at a lower price instead of a higher price. I don't have all the facts, but I think that was just an excuse. PFA talks about 90-10 and 80-20 as it stands now. So price, it's so critical. So I think let's stick with the statement. I don't think she was or he was 100% correct. Honorable Joseph.
Chairperson, I think you summed it up earlier on when you and the other members when we used the word value for money. I think that is what it is about. When people submit tenders and prices, they probably can come in their own right with any price they think on their own expenses and profit margins and so on. As you said, it is up to the officials to know the market and to make sure that the state is not ripped off with prices that people come with that is not value for money. So I think, as Member Matafa said, we have to just phrase it so that we don't, in a sense, contradict ourselves against the regulations or the rules that National Treasury must use in order to make sure that they take responsibility and guide all spheres of government to ensure value for money. It's taxpayers' money, it's people's money, residents' money that is being used, all on three spheres. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, honorable members. Darren and the team, I think you captured the issues raised by honorable members, and are going to be included in the report. Am I right?
Yes, Chairperson.
Yeah. Honorable members. Yes, honorable members, with those amendments and additions to the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill 2020. Can we adopt the report?
Yes, Chair.
Chairperson, sorry. Before you adopt, there's still that question about the UIF storage, your issue. Do we include it here or do we leave it for adjustments appropriation bill?
Okay, please let's leave it for adjustment appropriations.
All right.
Without, yeah. Then can I then move for the adoption of the report with the amendments which have been suggested by the honorable members?
Yes, Chair.
Honorable Kaiso.
I move for the adoption of the reports with the amendments.
I move to be seconded, Chair, for the amendments. Thank you.
Honorable, okay, any counter? Thank you so much.
Honorable Chair.
Yes, Honorable.
Can I be noted?
Yes, Honorable Tlang.
Can it please be noted in the report that I have abstained from the voting process? Thank you.
Okay, can you note that, Secretary? With that voting and abstaining, should I take it that the report is being adopted? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, honorable members. I know you're working under very, very tight schedule to make sure that this Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, or at least report as it stands now, is being looked at. And I've got no doubt that with the limited time that we had, but there was so much engagement with the bill itself, but again with the people who appeared before the committee. And again, as I said at the beginning, I would like to thank the support staff for the role that they played throughout the process. Thank you very much. The report has been adopted. Right, then we go to agenda item number 5, the overview of the 2020 appropriation bill. Who's leading us on this?
Chairperson, it will be me on my side, to Musaza Misa.
Musaza Misa, please lead us. You don't have all the time. Honorable members are debating tomorrow, so they also want to go and
Okay, Chairperson. I don't know if Darren can help me with running the presentation, the slides on his side, but I'll be very brief, Chair, because the issues that are contained in this presentation are similar to the issues that have been presented by National Treasury and all other stakeholders when we when we dealt with the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, because there's a very close relation between the Adjustments Appropriation Bill and the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. So I'll be very short, Chairperson. I will go from the first slide up until the fourth slide and then to the last slide. If we can go to the next slide, Darren. Yes, just the outline of the presentation, Chair, will just focus on the overview of the criteria that we use to select the departments. And then after that, we will just have an overview of the main message. That is our take as the researchers on the...
Yeah, just before you proceed, Musa, do you mind starting with the purpose of the presentation to the honorable members, and then you go to your things.
Chairperson. So
you are muted. You are muted, Musa.
Yes, sorry, Chair. The purpose of the presentation, Chairperson, was to look at all the major adjustments in the 2020 Adjustments Appropriation Bill and identify those that we think are very critical, within departments. And then on the basis of that, we select the departments that the committee should focus on. As you know, there are 41 budget votes in the Appropriations Bill. So we had to select the most critical ones, and then within those, then the committee the main core had to identify which ones need to come and appear and brief the committee, and those that the committee will need to write to so that they account, So that was the main purpose, and that's exactly what we did in this presentation. And then as we go along, we'll see which departments we identified, but in total, we identified initially 15 departments or budget votes out of the 41. And then after rigorous conversations and deliberations at MENCO, we ended up adding another one, which I'll identify later. So we now have 16 budget votes that we identified. So in terms of the outline, it will be the criteria that we used to identify the departments, and then the main message that we are sending through, the overview of the entire appropriation bill or the supplementary budget. What do we think is most important? Which areas that we think the committee must focus on? We caution on those areas. And then the other slide, the other section, which is the third section, with the list of the selected departments. Just a list there. I think this is where I will focus on, because I will not go into detail in terms of which, the figures and everything dealt with. So as I go along the list, I will highlight the main issues within the departments. And then the most important slide, the final analysis, that will be the slide that will give members the basis to engage and reflect, going forward, especially some of the issues around the economic recovery. Maybe if you can go to the next slide, Darren.
Darren, next slide.
Yeah. Yes. So the main criteria, Chair, that we looked at first, we looked at the size of the proposed adjustments within departments, whether it's the budgets that will be added in the budget to respond to COVID-19, or the budget that's been cut within a department in order to finance other COVID-19 related spending pressures. But also beyond just the size of the budget, we also looked at the critical nature of the proposed adjustments, like money taken from infrastructure projects, from social services. As you know, we have constitutional obligations, So we looked at those critical areas. So the main issues, these are suspensions, reductions, reprioritization, whichever name you want to use. Others, they say it's a repurposing of the budget, but there are cuts in certain critical projects taken to respond to COVID-19 spending pressure. So that's the focus. So the first one is the critical and high impact service delivery areas. We need to look at that. And then the critical social service delivery imperatives. That is linked to the obligation of the state to realize constitutional rights to health, housing, water, and food, and so on and so forth. So we look at that. And then the issue of infrastructure and the high impact job creation and economic growth areas. I think that's going to be the big debate going forward. And then issues relating to rural development. This committee always, I think members always say we must have bias to rural communities. The budget must have bias to those areas because it's about redistribution and issues of socio-economic transformation. So departments that have got high impact area spending programs, we look what has been done. If there are cuts, then we raise the caution to the members. Next slide, Darren, please.
I don't know what's going on here. It's not moving.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thanks,
Let's
Darren.
see. Okay.
Yes. So the main message, Chair, when we looked at this budget, I wouldn't lie to members. This is a very difficult budget. You know, I think it's the most difficult budget I've ever seen since I joined this committee in 2011. You know, the proposed adjustments, they reflect the overwhelming effects of COVID-19 on spending on public resources. There's so much pressure, you know. So there are significant trade-offs and some reductions, even though some reductions target historical pattern of underspending, but the trade-offs, they run very deep and they affect almost all departments. You know, if I may say, almost no department is spared from these cuts. Whether you call them reductions, repurposing, but the money is taken from critical areas, yes, to respond to something that has never been expected that it will happen. But it's a very, very, you know, Chair, in the past, because fiscal consolidation or spending cuts did not start, you know, with COVID-19. I think fiscal consolidation in a form of cost containment measures, it started in 2014, you know, with the efforts to try and, you know, close the budget deficit and stabilize debt. You know, since then, National Treasury has been, you know, sending instructions for departments to cut, especially, I think the most prominent one is the cuts on filling of vacant positions. That one has been, and departments have been limping. You know, some of the departments have been coming to the committee and complain that we cannot do this and that because there are instructions that we must cut budget, you know, especially in compensation of employees. So it's a big problem, and we say there is no doubt that it will affect the realization of the very noble NDP objectives, which the three ones, because they boil down to three things: addressing the issues of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. I think there's a mistake there. I repeated poverty instead of inequality. Those are the main three objectives of the NDP. And I think all along we've been saying, if the budget keeps on going to this direction and the spending by departments keeps on, you know, being poor, the main goal, which is the NDP, will be affected. There is no doubt about that. So these cuts, one or the other, they will affect the realization of these noble goals of the NDP. And this will also delay the rollout of key flagship projects like your NHI. I think in the speech, the minister did say that the NHI will be delayed because there are cuts in the Department of Health and they affect the NHI. And the issue of land reform is something that I will talk to in detail. That I think it's something that should concern the department. Transformation, electrification of rural households, eradication of bucket toilets, eradication of mud schools, you know, all the key flagship projects. So some of the gains that we have realized over the years could somehow be also reversed to a certain extent. And we argue that if these cuts, because I think there's nothing that the committee can do now, you know, because there's not enough time to even change this budget. And no one expected COVID-19 and there must be a response to COVID-19. But the main issue is how do we manage and mitigate these trade-offs that have been, sort of imposed by COVID-19. Because if they are not well managed or mitigated, especially within departments, if departments do not revise their business plans, their implementation plans accordingly, then this will have a devastating effect on the capacity of the state to deliver its mandate, which includes the efficient delivery of basic services with the bias to poor households, because it's the poor households who definitely depend on the services of government, because end of the day, they don't have much resources, they don't have alternatives. Some, maybe including us, when there's no water, I can go to Pick n Pay and buy water, but for people on the ground, it's a different story altogether. So these have to be managed, and it is in this context. And then the second one, it will also affect the capacity of the state to safeguard the progressive realization of constitutional obligations. With housing, those cuts on the Urban Settlement Development Grant, Human Settlements Development Grant, that's a right to housing. It's in the Constitution. In water, programs and grants for water provision, infrastructure are cut. So that will affect in the long run. So they have to be well mitigated. And then the biggest one, it will affect the capacity of government to revive the economy. Because I think the big debate, and I'm happy that the committee is in the forefront of this, because if you do not grow the economy, the likelihood you're going to be cutting. As we have seen now, we are cutting to the bone. And the only solution, as members always say, the message that has to be taken to Treasury by Parliament is that the only solution out of this is to revive the economy. With the shocks, the fiscal shocks that we've seen now, the main priority is to ensure that there's fast recovery in the economy. Otherwise, if the cake is small and you keep on cutting the cake, you'll end up having nothing. As I said, you'll not be in a position to even honor the Constitution, to do the basic things that need to be done. So the issue that I think was highlighted when we dealt with the report about, if we cut on infrastructure, if we cut back, so it's the whole debate of pro-cyclical or counter-cyclical fiscal and monetary policy. That debate needs to come to the fore, because if we don't grow the economy, I think we can almost predict what will happen. And I think it's not something that anyone wishes to see happening. Maybe next slide. That's the main message, Chair. And then next slide, Darren. And now the list of departments, overall now there are 16, and I will just highlight the main issues within departments. And then I'll go to the last slide. The first one is social development. This is the budget that received, I think, the department that received the biggest budget, mainly to provide social relief, to cushion the poor, So, but there's a bigger debate, again, that Parliament needs to be in the forefront of. I think I heard the Minister of Small Business Development, the possibility of introducing the basic income grant. When we invite the department, they also need to, take us through those discussions, because they seem to have started putting systems in place. The debate, do we have enough budget? If not, are we going to go and borrow in order to ensure the implementation of the basic income grant, how much we need to borrow? But even within the adjustments that have taken place, mostly it's the injections to support. And then there have been many glitches within the department. And I think the committee needs to send a strong message that when we introduce these measures to cushion the poor, it's very important that they are efficient. Because when you give people hope and then you don't deliver, some sort of social trust is broken. So we need to make sure that all those issues are taken care of. But one of the cards that we are worried about in this department, the figures are in the reports and they've been articulated by other stakeholders, is the one on the budget for early childhood development. This is the biggest worry. because I think this is the sector that will be affected now. Because as I speak, my son returned to school, Chair, today, grade 1, because in the Western Cape, they said they will continue to teach grade 1, even though the regulations at national said grade 1 is not supposed to go back, you know, they will come back at a lesser stage. But my son is back to school. But I'm not going to be taking him back to aftercare. So that sector needs a lot of injection because I think it's hard hit, you know, and early childhood development, Chair, is a flagship project of government, because if you lose it there, whatever happens afterwards is difficult for children to catch up. So it's the basis. It's the basis for quality education, whether you think of secondary school, primary school, higher education and training. If you lose it at early childhood development, then things are very tough. That's why you are worried about that cut. And the other one is cooperative governance. I think the Honorable Whip was very emphatic about the inclusion of this department in those that will invite, because it is at the center of whatever is happening around the responding to COVID-19 issues. But there are important, also important cuts, critical cuts that have been made. One that I can cite is the cut on the MIG, Municipal Infrastructure Grant. Again, Chair, the issue that we always raise, the MIG has been underspending, I think, since time immemorial, you know. So there's a dilemma, you know. It's a cut, but even if the money is allocated, it's not spent. There's an opportunity cost of not spending. Also, if you cut, there's an opportunity cost of not providing the services. Also, not maintaining infrastructure. And then, as Fiso articulated earlier, it comes back to haunt us as we see now, because with load shedding, how do we even speak of economic growth and recovery when you have load shedding, you know? Because investors within and outside of the country, they need security of energy, you know? You lose a lot of money, especially small businesses. So those things are very critical. And another one that is very critical under cooperative governance, reduction on community works projects. You know, the money will be taken to COVID-19 to, you know, pay participants who will be disinfecting schools and universities and so on. But the question that I have in my mind, what about the beneficiaries of the community works project? They are expecting, they've got contracts and all that. Will they be roped in the other project for sanitizing schools and so on and so forth? And the most sensitive point, Chair, around these projects, they are meant to empower communities, to cushion them against poverty, because obviously it's not to alleviate, but to cushion, because it's not enough money. But what I realized, you know, the money goes to those who get tenders. What goes down to the people who actually do the job, it's almost nothing, Chairperson. It's a very sad story. You know, maybe to put this into perspective, I realized, like, first experience, my sister she worked in a saloon, so COVID-19 happened, obviously the sector was closed. And then she was lucky to be called by another guy who got a tender to sanitize universities, DUT in Durban. But I was excited for her, but I told her, you must not raise your hopes, because I know these guys who get tenders, they take money, blah, 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 and then you get nothing. And then when she got there, she was told, she had to sign a contract, told that she will get 22 rand per hour and she will only work for 4 hours per week. And then overall it was going to be 400 per week. Per month is less than 2,000. And then she had to leave this opportunity. But the thing is, government does make money available for this project, but along the way, you know, these guys take a lot of money. I don't know how government will intervene in that, because end of the day, people look up to government, you know, but the people who get these tenders, I think, in my view, they also let government down, because end of the day, it's about the communities. But when you ask the communities, what comes to them really, what trickles down to them, it's basically crumbs, and it doesn't really help with cushioning them against poverty. And then the other one is health. I think this one is been well talked about, a lot of money given to health, but again, there are many cuts. The biggest concern here is the NHI and the contradiction. If the issue that we have, and I think scientists have said it already, we must expect this to be the new normal. These viruses will keep on attacking us. Now it means our health system for the foreseeable future must be very strong. We must be ready for whatever. But if we now delay the implementation of the NHI, it means we're going to have a hard time going forward. So the NHI, even the hospital revitalization grant is the basis for the implementation of the NHI. So those cuts there, and then there are cuts around issues of HIV, TB, and so on and so forth. And then in National Treasury, it's the grants that are supposed to support municipalities. There are strong cuts there. So now municipalities will not be supported. So that's a big problem. And then I think there's about 7 billion that has been allocated just to fund or, the interest on borrowing. And that's a lot of money. And that's an issue that when we speak of the debates, the chairperson always say we must think these things, that we must think about the debt. The cost of borrowing is too high, and it's going to be very too high. But again, if you don't invest, you're not going to even have the money to repay, in the long run. You're not going to even recover. So those are the debates that need to take place. And then basic education, again, infrastructure grants, whether you speak of basic, whether you speak of the ACIDI, Accelerated School Infrastructure Program, the eradication of mud schools, especially in the Eastern Cape. We know that's where the problem is in rural areas. And the erection of basic services, the pit latrine toilets, and so on and so forth. So issues of infrastructure and education, the grants are cut there, and we know the history. And the eradication of mud schools, I think when I joined the committee in 2011, that's when this issue started. I think it came in 2012. It was supposed to be done, and then it's been, there's been a lot of underspending also in this grant. Even the education infrastructure grant has been cut, and then that limits the capacity of provinces really to provide infrastructure. And then in the context of COVID-19, children are going back to school, but there's no infrastructure and the money has been cut. That's going to be a big problem. And then higher education and training. TVET colleges, chairperson, a lot has been said about the capacity and efficiencies at TVET colleges. Those grants have been cut, money reprioritized to COVID-19, going to be a big problem. TVET are going to have a big problem. And then even subsidies to universities, especially historically disadvantaged universities. Those projects will be delayed, a big problem. And then within NSFAS, there've been reprioritization within, money taken. We don't know exactly, that's where my worry is. We don't know in which aspect of NSFAS money is taken, but it's now gonna fund the procurement of computers, the issues of data, and then issues of disinfecting university halls and stuff like that. But we don't know in which aspect, but the issue of money being taken to historically disadvantaged universities, already underfunded, so it's gonna be a big problem. And then it's the construction, it's infrastructure. So it's all, the issue of infrastructure runs across almost all departments. And then agriculture, rural development, and land reform. This one is the issue. The issue of land reform, Chair, it will be delayed. If you look at the cuts there, the Office of the Valuer General, that's the office that looks at the fair and consistent assessment of the price of land, so that the state does not pay exorbitant money. A budget has been taken from this office, a budget from the land tenure program, land restitution, land redistribution, even programs like Ilima Letsema, so small and emerging farmers. Budget that supports food security in rural areas has been cut. So this one is very key, agriculture, rural development, and land reform. That one is very important. And then defense, yeah, it's a lot of injection to make sure that money for the deployment of the reserve force is there, and then also to fund other things. But also there have been cuts in this department, cuts for the training of soldiers, cuts for fuel, for, you know, for soldier, like your planes and so on and so forth, and then cuts for the budget that was meant for Arms Corps. But the problem that I have, Chair, in 2017, I think Darren will remember very well, we had an oversight visit because we need to follow up on these issues. We had an oversight visit with focusing on the Department of Defense and military veterans. We went to the Free State province, and then the state of affairs was very disheartening, Chairperson. The conditions at which our soldiers live in, the accommodation, and even the military hospitals, it was just bad. And I think in the media, at some point, we heard about ammunition being stolen from one of the military bases. And those are the issues that they were complaining about, because it puts the security of the state in danger, you know, because people can just, you know, even fencing is not being done. And then they were complaining about treasure. They will say the issue is budget cuts, you know, and Treasury was there, say they had to, you know, it's part of fiscal consolidation. So that's another area that's, yeah, because we need to follow up, because we made a lot of promises. You know, some of the soldiers there, they came short of saying it was better before than now, because of the conditions that they live in, you know, because they live as families there. So that's one area. And then human settlements, that's the right to housing. And we know social protest and so on and so forth, they mainly revolve around this one, because you can't have basic sanitation, electrification, if you don't have shelter. That's a basic human right. And then there have been many cuts, but again, a point that needs to be emphasized. Urban Settlements Development Grant, Human Settlements Development Grant, those grants have been underspending for some time. The question that Chairperson always asks, is it the problem of money in South Africa, or the problem of not spending that what you have? And why are departments not spending what they have? I think because it's one thing to say, no, don't cut, to say there's no money. You know, when I looked at sometimes when you look at the budget, you realize that actually South Africa, if things were done right, you know, money spent where it's supposed to be spent, we could easily become a developed country. Because, I mean, we could have universities, schools, you know, hospitals and everything. Because we speak of billions here, billions there, but it's the quality of spending of that money, you know. So I think this is the dilemma. And in the final analysis, I think one of the things that maybe the committee needs to really ponder on, what are the powers that the committee really has? Because year in, year out, we observe underspending, poor spending, no value for money, lack of consequence management. We write recommendations, they are sent to the House, there are resolutions, but we don't see a change. And if you look at the trend, you can almost expect this is what will be happening going forward. And you begin to ask yourself, what are the parameters? What are the constraints? What can Parliament do? Because at some point now we must, you know, have groundbreaking debates around these issues, because we become sort of a broken record. You can even say it's a merry-go-round, but end of the day, there's nothing merry about this, because it's people's lives at stake, it's people's livelihoods. And then transport, this is a very high capital and human resource intensive sector. So that's why you should see growth, you should see employment, you should see skills transfer, and so on and so forth. But again, there's been underspending and there are cuts. And the maintenance of roads, I think Spiso said it very well. If you do not maintain roads, it's gonna cost you in the long run. You know, I think the issue of SANRAL, you know, money also has been taken from SANRAL from PRASA, I think over 1 billion, from 1 billion from PRASA, and also from Sanral. Oh, there are glitches here. So that's a big problem in transport. And then small business development, we selected this department chair for one reason. There's no way. We always say SMMEs are the cornerstone of this economy because most of jobs and economic activities happen in small businesses. And a lot of reprioritization within this department are taken from money that was meant for the biggest worry, township economy, the revival of township economy. Also to also protect small businesses in one way or the other, and also sustain jobs. But we don't know the nitty-gritties. I think the department will have to come and tell us, if you take from these activities and secure, what will be the implications? Because it's reprioritization mainly within the department. And we've had debates, Chairperson, we've observed in a news report, small businesses complaining that actually we're not getting support. It seems as if this money is going to big companies. Some businesses, even if they receive money, the money does not go to the beneficiaries, like the issues of UIFs, you know. There's now a debate. The government said we provided the UIF funding to this business, but this business will say, no, we did not. So the people who are supposed to receive UIFs don't get the money, you know. Some were fired, even though some of the business got some compensation from government, you know. So end of the day, but recovery should come from one of these departments, small business development. So we can't speak of economic recovery, economic growth, job protection and creation without inviting this department. And then in mineral resources and energy, the one critical area, INEP, Integrated National Electrification Program. Granted, that one is a big problem, but again, it's been underspending. You don't know why, you know. And this also an area before the issue of electrification of rural households, it's job opportunities. But the saddest thing, these households have been waiting for electricity since 1994. And now, if you don't have electricity in the era of COVID-19, it's a big problem because children are learning through tablets, you know. If you don't have electricity, you have no basis to use tablets to be part of the, you know, new, what do they call this new form of economy? I forgot the term, but in this new economy, without electricity, you can't have access to internet and so on and so forth. They've been waiting. It's sad to see communities, you know, going to collect wood just to make fire so that they can cook, you know. It's winter, you can imagine, Chairperson. But I still wish to know why this budget is not spent. I really still wish to know. And then the other one is police, money for the deployment of police and so on and so forth. And there have been some cuts in this department, and we feel that the justice system, especially COVID-19, I think I've heard the ministers in different clusters saying, COVID-19, there's a correlation between COVID-19 and issues of gender-based violence, and we need more police, and we need more police facilities. So the cuts also affect, you know, your facilities in the criminal justice system, and that's a big problem. I'm about to complete this one, Chair, is justice and constitutional development. Well, we know, Chair, this department, there is a backlog, hence why even the issue of consequence management, if you don't have capacity in this department, you will have, you know, people defrauding the state officials and not being prosecuted because there's no capacity in the justice and constitutional development department or vote. You know, there's a significant budget taken from Legal Aid South Africa that is access, basic access to justice for the poor. you know. And it's just that I'm not really involved in this one, but when I listen, I hear that there's not enough money in legal aid, you know. So further cuts there, you can imagine. And then the other one, the modernization of courts. Courts are still using outdated systems, hence why there are backlogs and delays and so on and so forth. So money has been taken away from that. Of course, Rio prioritized to respond to COVID-19. And the other one, the construction of courts. But the most important one, the special investigating unit. That's the one when the president announced it, I think 2-3 years ago, it was going to ensure that there is consequence management because there's a backlog. The SIU is sitting with these cases, but this unit was supposed to focus really to these cases of officials and, you know, take money or spend money in manner that is not supposed to and waste, you know, to prosecute them so that the state recovers the money. So if money is taken away from this unit, again, there's a big problem. And then Statistics South Africa, it's also one of the areas that most stakeholders who presented before the committee did not talk about. The worry for us is that this department, Statistics South Africa, plays a critical role in the planning and budgeting in the country, because for you to plan and budget, you need to base that on credible data. And this department has been complaining, I think, as far back as, 2018, after these budget cuts as part of cost containment measures. I think I read one of the reports, they were sitting with about 600 vacant positions, critical positions for field researchers, you know, and there was a very strong letter from one of the professors. I think he was writing on behalf of the Council for Statistics South Africa, you know, talking about the cuts and the effect that it has on the integrity and credibility of the data that they provide, which is the basis for government planning and budgeting, you know. So I don't know, for some reason, this issue escaped this committee. We said we need to highlight this one because we think we are the relevant committee over and above National Treasury, a sort of more a portfolio committee over this department. But we appropriate. So when they complain about the effect of cuts, you know, we must really raise eyebrows and invite them, whether in writing or otherwise, you know. As we speak, 2 critical surveys, like relating to income, poverty, and inequality, they will be delayed because budget has been taken away from them. Well, in the explanatory memorandum of the supplementary budget review, Treasury says, no, the cuts, the surveys will be delayed because of COVID-19, you know, so they can't do face-to-face interview. In actual fact, we know this issue was on the table even before COVID-19. There was even a threat to sort of delay census. You know, I think they found a way somehow because this issue was elevated even to the presidency by the Council for Statistics South Africa. Some of them, they even threatened to withdraw from the council because they have to endorse, you know, the validity of the results of the surveys and census and so on and so forth. So we thought we need to highlight this one so that these issues don't, you know, appear in the media, you know, and the committee sort of react. Let's focus on them in the budget if they surface and the committee is in the forefront. If there are measures to really find a solution is found. And the last one, which was added after rigorous discussions, and I think the person who really sponsored this one at MENCO and supported by members of MENCO, it's FISO, water and sanitation, and we agree with him, a very critical department. And you know, in this department, even the issue of eradication of, it does not appear now, but we had an oversight visit also to Free State because bucket toilets are concentrated in the Free State. we found a lot of things. That's when I realized that if we do things right, I mean, we are basically a developed country. But, the way things are done, it really boggles the mind sometimes. We don't know where is that the issue. In COVID-19, if you are still using a bucket toilet, I mean, you can imagine, even if you can wear a mask, you can imagine. And then there are many cards here on key grants for water, whether it's the regional bulk infrastructure grant, water services grant, and various other indirect grants. So those departments, we selected them on those bases, and then those that will appear in the committee as that has been circulated to members, those were part of this list that we selected. And one of the mechanisms that's this committee, because, the capacity of this committee and the issues that this committee, the scope of the work of this committee, there's a mismatch, so you end up trying to, prioritize those that you can, others will write letters to them. I think that's what will happen with other departments. Maybe, Darren, if we can go to the last slide of the presentation. I will not go to, because what is in the document is a reflection of what I've spoken about. The last slide, which is the final analysis. I think this will give members something really but it's something that members are already thinking about as we speak. Thanks, Darren. Then in the final analysis, yes, we agree. COVID-19, we never in our wildest dreams expected this to happen. Unfortunately, it happened, but we need to move on. We need to adapt. We need to innovate, and we need to do better as departments, because if things go the way they are going now, Chair, to a great extent, I agree with the Minister of Finance. We are headed to troubled waters. We see now the cards, no one is spared. And, at some point, I even say, no one, they say when I read the literature, no one thought the Titanic can sink, because it was so mighty and big, But we all know what happened, it sank. And the sad part is, when it sank, very few people were saved. And it's not the third-class citizens, it's not the second-class citizens. It was the first-class citizens, people with money. And that's the fear I have about the state of affairs, because if public resources are under threat in this manner, and the contingency reserve, I think it's almost, empty. Hence why we got $1 billion US from the Development Bank, the BRICS Bank, and we are expecting, we never even thought it would be, I think it happened before, but it's something, it was a no to go to the IMF, but suddenly now it is, it's gonna be a norm. Everyone is going there now, World Bank and IMF, with all the challenges that comes with that, So if things go bad, it's sad, because there are very few who will be able to run away, to other countries, greener pastures, and so on and so forth. Maybe they've got money, friends, and families. Most of us, we are just here, and we have no other home, We'll go down with this country if it goes down, So that is why it's very important that every measure is taken to mitigate the impact, but most importantly, to grow the economy. That's the only solution. Like I said, the proposed trade-offs are severe, deep, and wide-ranging, and the delays, could have serious ramifications, But the big question, I think it's already on the members' minds, on the tip of the tongues of many analysts out there. How will government going to achieve economic recovery, economic growth, and job creation? Because that's the main issue, because it's not about the allocation only of resources, it's how those resources are used, to infrastructure projects across. I think I agree with the observation, members know this. I think even Tumsan of the PPO raised this issue. This has been a long time since government introduced the issue of infrastructure spending as a measure to reignite the economy. But the spending, we even introduced various measures like the budget infrastructure, Darren, is it BFI, budget infrastructure facility, yeah, BIF, and the presidential infrastructure coordinating committee, you know. So all these structures that are being put in place, I think even with the SOE now, we have the SOC Council. I think some 5 years ago, there was a commission or whatever structure that was supposed to evaluate the issue of SOEs and come up with findings and recommendations. The report came out, had very specific findings and recommendations. You must match SOEs, you must scrap. But for some reason, it gathered dust for a long time till today. You know, we are still debating the issue of we need to match, we need to scrap, and so on and so forth. But end of the day, we have to take action, because without action and proper action, there will be no change. You can't repeat the same thing over and over again and expect the same result. I think I will end there, Chairperson, and allow Sifiso maybe to add. Noliolo is not around, so I had to cover her as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Musa. Sifiso, very briefly. That's honourable members. I said at the beginning of Musa's presentation that he must say what the purpose of the presentation is, and basically is more of trying to lay the ground as we proceed with the appropriations bill, and so that's and we're still going to engage with some of these departments and see, but he has given us a helicopter view of what is happening in each and every one of them. Before Sifiso comes in, the Labour, Honourable Tlamin has just rushed to another meeting. She requested that Labour and Employment Department we should also get information about it, because there's been cut, but a lot of companies are also taking advantage of that and retrenching workers without following any due process. Just note that. Sifiso, take a bite.
No, Chairperson, thank you. But I'm covered, Chairperson. I think we have spoken much about these issues, so I'm covered, Chairperson. It's okay. I would prefer not to say anything. Thank you.
Ukwatile.
Chairperson, it's not personal, but okay. We've spoken much on these issues.
Okay. Honourable members, without opening a debate on this, as I said, it was more about giving you a glimpse of what is happening in the departments and what we'll be faced with when we deal with the appropriations bill. But I think I'll open to honourable members who would like to say something. Can I have hands? I see Honourable Joseph, Honourable Sheikh, Honourable Kaiso. You can shout at me aloud if you don't see a hand there.
Yes, Chairperson, I don't have this thing.
Honourable Mlenzana, bamnqamula isandla. Who else? Honourable members, I have Honourable Joseph, Honourable Sheikh, Honourable Qais, Honourable Mlenzana, Honourable Peters.
Matafa. Yes, Chair.
Honourable Matafa. Are we done? Okay. Honourable members, just two minutes, as I'm saying that we, what's happening here, we've just been given a bite of what we are going to be dealing with when we deal with the appropriation bill. So, Honorable Joseph, go. We have got 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson and members. I think thank you very much for the hard work behind the scenes of our administrative staff, researchers, content advisors, all the other professional people. Thank you very much for informing and build the capacity of this committee. I think many people have said COVID-19 has brought a situation where government is found wanting, exposed on our own plans and service delivery, particularly basic services and urbanization. And that is the thing going forward that we need to focus on, how we're going to manage urbanization and the basic services that goes with it. And secondly, rural development and socioeconomic issues raised. It's not new also, urbanization. Since the days of the mines and the gold that was found, people rushed from local areas to the cities and the towns, and that is how urbanization starts. So even today with job opportunities more in the cities, metros, that's where people go. But we need, if we can sustain the development at local level, rural level, then some percentage of people will stay in that communities and build the economy there. So it's about economic growth and job creation in closing, which I think was summarized well. Question is, what are we as a committee going to do to support, initiate other departments who must do this work, to support them and encourage them to do what they must do, particularly infrastructure development and building an economy, creating jobs and opportunities. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Honorable Joseph. Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you very much, Chair. And let me thank the committee for that briefing. And I think it did give us a lot of insight into what we can expect and what we should actually be doing. But Chair, my concern is this, that particularly in our committee, I think over a period of time, and I think I agree with my colleague that just spoke, we've identified a whole lot of challenges. I think we, better than anybody else, know exactly many of the problems and challenges we're facing in many of these departments. My understanding is our hands are tied as well. And this is coming from the previous parliament as well. It seems like that I don't know how much of powers we have, whether it's limited or what the situation is, and I think we need to get it. And I'll give you a good example. We've discussed extensively earlier on in chain where we know the problems are coming, particularly with the tenders and how these things are being exploited with value for money. We know these things. I think the question I want to ask is, how can we as a committee play a more pivotal role in addressing this at all levels, getting to the root problem, whichever the departments are, and following it up from A to Z in being able to sort it? I'll give you another good example. You take social development. There's a whole lot of cry about gender-based violence. And we are dealing with gender-based violence after the fact. And what we should be dealing with, how do we prevent this gender-based violence? And I'll give you a good example. There's hundreds of millions of rands. Social development alone, it's not going into billions, give to NGOs and NPOs in South Africa. Can you tell me if they can be seen or heard in terms of assisting to deal with the challenges of gender-based violence? No. Everybody seems to be coming after somebody has committed a murder or a rape, getting charged. So I think we need to start looking at how we can go and deal with the root problem. Same thing with rural development and land. We've got beautiful land in many of the areas. And I'm going to give you a good example, Chip. We've got prisons, we've got hospitals, we've got schools. All these people are being provided. One item, I'll give you, bread. We've got beautiful land to grow the wheat, which is now being owned by big conglomerates in South Africa. They buy the whole crop off before it's even grown. Why are we not able to go there to these areas, create that environment, agricultural reform, make sure that we find people that are unemployed, fill them, supply our own hospitals and clinics and schools and everybody, at the same time take those out from prison, give them the necessary skills. So there's a whole lot I think we can do. The question I want to ask is, how can we as this committee, and maybe we need clarity on what we can do, drive this process? It looks like it's going to have to come from us since we are responsible for appropriating budget. Drive the entire process, including when it comes to the job creation, dealing with gender-based, but many, many issues that we are aware of. We know it, we know what the solutions are, but nobody is doing anything about it. It looks like we're going to have to drive it, and that's what the clarity I'd like to have.
Thank you, Honorable Kaiso. Please unmute, Honorable Kaiso.
Yes, yes, unmute, Chair. Chair, let me thank the presentation that has been made, and it gives us a very clear picture of what is expected of us going ahead with the adjustment appropriation bill. But I just want to make just a few observations, Chair, that I think there's more that that we should ask ourselves on a number of items here which have been raised by the presentation. Because I was drawn to the issue of NSFAS, NHI, SMMEs, and SANRAL cards. Secondly, it was saying to us, we also have to ask ourselves about the four critical issues moving forward with this adjustment appropriation bill. The issue of the district development model, which the president has made emphasis on, the issue of gender-based violence, infrastructure development. I think there's other one that I'm missing. But I didn't hear, okay, including the monitoring and evaluation. I don't know where this item features in this presentation. I didn't get it, and district development model. I'm just saying, highlighting that these issues are very central to the issues that have been emphatically mentioned by the president. And I don't see anyone talking about gender-based violence budget, the district development model, infrastructure development. If we can move away from those things, I don't see us, seeing any future, improvement, because these all of these items talk to exactly what the president has raised earlier, because local government is a state of local government, and the district development model. They are very, very, very key in actually advancing services to our people. But I just wanted to make these observations. You ask yourself if we are going to face a situation where we are to, have NHI being cut during the assertion that COVID is going to be with us for quite a long period. So what does that mean? There's a lot of contradiction that maybe as we go by discussions of this adjustment appropriation bill in future, we have to get Treasury to get its issues quite strictly put forward to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mlenzana.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me start here by appreciating this work that has been done. Out of 40 votes, your management committee has managed to come up with 16. This is good work done, Chairperson. Now, Chairperson, what runs in my mind is that you will guide me, Chairperson, here. We are going for the medium-term budget statement, Chairperson. And we are now almost done with this. We're debating tomorrow. I want a situation, Chairperson, where we do not play a talk show arrangement here, where we talk, implement, and see outcomes. I have in mind here, that's why I said it will guide me. I have a three-legged approach system. You would know the tripod, Emakai, where one we could say, as Umusa suggested, that there will surely be those departments that will have to call, sit with them. And then two, if Abu Musa could develop a questionnaire for those departments that we wouldn't be able to come sit with them as a committee. But the questionnaire should begin to extract all that we would have loved to get if the particular department was with us in this kind of an arrangement as the committee. And then the third one, Chair, would be, we have been talking impact assessment. I'm smuggling this one, Chair. You will bear with me. We haven't been talking of oversight. Now, what comes into my mind was, what if then we pick on a particular province? Just two provinces, Chair. We go to a province and they give us, say, a metro. We go to another province, they give us a rural district municipality, wherein we will pull in all the 16 departments to be with us in that particular arrangement, so that we can actually see the impact that the undercutting, the reprioritization, and whatever terminology that Umusa was coming up with has in terms of the actual impact when we are on the ground. That is one part, Chair. The second one would be looking at the prioritization. I've said it's 16. How then do we pick on those who seem to be performing well? Because look, Chairperson, we shouldn't be seen as fault finders. We should be able, through Abu Musa, to get a particular department which is on track. And we call it also to showcase, so that we are able to say, as appropriations, social development, why not mirror this particular department because it is performing well? Let me stop there, Chairperson. I don't want to take your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Lenza and Honorable Peters.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think different from what comrades have said and done, I should actually say I also support those who applaud the work of the management team and the management committee and the presentation as done by Musa Zamisa. And I would want to say this presentation truly, Chairperson, give a well thought out planning process, and I need to congratulate you people for that. And I would want to recommend that other than piling up more departments, because we are then not going to have enough time, let us take this 16. I heard what you said about Honorable Ntlangwini raising the issue with labor. I think maybe labor we should not necessarily consider in the adjustment or the supplementary budget process, but rather outside this process, call them to look at the issues that are being raised, also about the general challenges that they are facing with the intervention with the COVID unemployment funds. So I would believe, and we would call them and SASSA at that particular time to look at that package of interventions. So the 16, in fact, had it gone according to me, it would have been less, so that there is maximum participation by members in engaging. And I'm sure you would have realized, Chairperson, from the inputs by members, from Honorable Joseph's, Honorable Imam, as well as Mlenzan, there's an indication on the edge to want to participate and engage these particular departments. So I would recommend that we accept this proposal and also appreciate the fact, Chairperson, that we've been given the rationale for why these particular departments, and I would recommend that the preparations towards the engagements with each department, we should be able to get a synoptic view of the issues that Zamisa has been raising with regard to why each department, because I really appreciated that input. I would just want to say to Honorable Kaiso, Honorable Kaiso, the one thing that we need to do, if you look at the police, you look at defense, you look at social development, you look at health, you look at basic education, at justice, that GBV issues are cross-cutting. The COCTA needs to come and tell us about the district development model, and I'm happy that COCTA would have been identified primarily because of the issues that we picked up when we engaged with SALGA. So I think, Chairperson, I am very excited and very happy on the preparations that have been done for this particular process of engaging with these departments. And I am just appealing that we give them ample time so that we can then be able to dig deep into the issues. You would have realized that some of these departments are the very departments where there are reprioritization cuts or whatever, primarily because of underspending and a lack of planning and all those other issues. On a side issue, as part of the planning, Chairperson, I would recommend that metros, a Department of Public Works and Department of Labor, let us put them aside for the post appropriations, supplementary appropriations process. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Honorable Peters. Honorable Matafa.
Thank you very much, Chair. Now, let me also join the members who are acknowledging the good work that was done in the research, and also agree with Honorable Peters that the recommendations as made must be agreed to. Now, thank you very much to Team Research and the management team. The work really speaks for itself. But Chair, having said that, this one I think is a point that speaks to us as the legislature and as well as members of parliament. When one listens to Mr. Zamisa speak, indicating when he started joining the committee until today, it's actually a cry for help. Since 2011, I've been exposed to these horror stories.
Does the committee have about some of
them? Committees come in and go, but nothing seems to be resolved.
And I think
Chairperson, we can hear your discussion.
Okay, sorry. Please come in.
Thanks, Comrade Peters.
To Advocate Jenkins.
Okay. So Chair, I think what Musa is saying is that you might make these recommendations, you might come with these resolutions, they are adopted in the House, nothing happens, what then? So my question would be, does Parliament have a resolution tracking system which will then indicate if whether a resolution has been exhausted after it has been endorsed? There's the first part. Now, the second part will be on the monitoring and evaluation. I think it's also a department that I would suggest that we also invite again to the committee to say you are monitoring, you are evaluating. What then? When you have your findings, what happens to those findings and observations? And maybe this will shed light in terms of who monitors the monitoring and evaluation, because they can monitor, evaluate, package their observations, package their findings, report to Parliament, and then nothing happens. Because I also belong, Chair, to various discussion groups. And then in 3 different groups, everybody's asking, but why are these issues of ESCOM only being raised now? Who is this Sfiso Buthelezi, the chairperson, who's being cited in media reports about issues that could have been resolved in the 4th Parliament already. The 5th Parliament did not see them. Now they're only being raised now. It speaks to what Musa is raising. That since 2011, I've been with you. There are certain instances that some of the issues are recurring on end and nothing seems to be happening. I think we need to pay focus there in terms of the monitoring evaluation and look at its impact as a department, and then how then do we ensure that what other beefing up can be done in order to assist. The second one, Chair, is on the issue of the COVID-19. I'll differ slightly with Honorable Josephs when he says that COVID-19 has indicated the lack of governance skills from the ruling party. But I would say that COVID-19, like Musa was saying, no one could have dreamt it happening. It has happened. However, it presented opportunities that I think personally could be carried going forward. Just one example, National Treasury created a list of prices for PPE to say that if you're going to procure an apron, a mask, or sanitizer, these are the prices that government should pay. And in that list, which I have seen, by the way, it also indicates who and which department is allowed to procure those particular items. Now, for me, there is a new way of doing things. Why can't we, as the committee, advocate for this approach to be adopted everywhere else in all other departments? Because my thinking is that even if we speak of infrastructure development, there are market prices for rates in terms of how much an engineer can be paid per hour, how much a land surveyor can be paid per hour. So if these prices are documented, I think it will assist in eradicating the issue of suppliers taking advantage of government due to pricing for a particular project. But the pricing will be, so to speak, standard, which then will be common knowledge to all the functionaries in government, when then they will know at what price can they start negotiating with the service provider or rejecting the price for that fact. The last one, Chair, is on the issue of the underspending as well as the irregular expenditure, wasteful expenditure incurred by departments. We always speak figures. In most cases, we don't speak personnel. My view is that for these things to happen, there should be people behind the processes. Now, and I think this is a question that will be difficult for us to respond to, but maybe COGTA and the Department of Labor should assist us in responding to this in terms of performance management in government. Because I'm sitting and thinking, I used to be in the financial sector for about 12 years. Any cent that was spent outside of processes had to be accounted for. And the continuation of that leads to performance management, eventually leading to a person exiting the system. In the public sector, do we have such performance management that will say that you are employed at this level, these are your expectations, these are the expectations, and if you underperform, then you are supported. If you are unable to repent after being supported, then you are exited in the system. I've never had a situation where a person in the private sector lost their job because of underperformance or having been reprimanded. And for me, it's worrying, Chair, that I would sit as a functionary in government, spend money irregularly, spend money wastefully, where I'm supposed to spend accordingly, I underspend. And then tomorrow I'm still on the same job. Next year I'm still on the same job. When we go and discuss salary increases, I also qualify for that salary increase. No way that I'm being reprimanded that I have seen happen. And I'm just concerned, Chair, that maybe it's an area that we need to look at. I'm not sure if whether it belongs to this committee or not, but for me, it's worrying that underperformance, overspending, irregular expenditure happens unabated. For now, Chair, those are the three issues that I wanted to rise on. But again, thank you very much for the presentation that was made. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. My apology, I was trying to prime Advocate Jenkins because I want him to come in, because I can feel the frustration coming from the research team, and then coming from the honorable members. And as lawmakers, we can't be seen to be powerless in some of these things. Because we, as you are saying, that a lot of things have been identified. But just before I allow Advocate Jenkins, I'll just say one thing. If you look at how big this elephant is, again, we should be careful that we shouldn't bite more than we can chew. Considering that we have also got time frames to deal with these things by such and such a time, we need to have passed these and so on and so forth. So there's that balancing act that we need to consider. But Advocate Jenkins, you have heard the honorable members. I just want you to share with us exactly what is it that we can and cannot do.
Thank you, Chair. I hope I'm audible.
Yes,
good morning still. Chair, I think we are quite familiar with the normal cycle of the budget and how the Money Bills and Related Matters Act empowers Parliament in a procedural manner to make those amendments. And maybe just to remind the members of it that it's a oversight exercise. So we have adopted reports on performance, the BRRRs, so that's on the performance of departments, and those reports filter into the appropriations committees through various portfolio committees. And based on that, as well as SCOPA reports and Auditor General reports, appropriations committees can then look at changing the budget, the appropriation bill as such. And what has happened this year, of course, as we all know now, it's COVID. Coronavirus, or whatever one wants to call it. It's from where I'm sitting, it's far from over, so the impact is not certain yet. But what we have seen from where we are now in July is that we have an adjustments budget. In my 20 years in Parliament, or almost 20 years in Parliament, it's the first time we have an adjustments budget in June, July, and not in September. It's not only an adjustments budget, there's quite some radical changes that has come in because of this pandemic. What does that mean for Parliament's powers to amend the budget? Chair, it makes it, I would say, very difficult at this point in time to say we must amend that adjustments appropriation bill. That's going to be very difficult simply because it's an extraordinary situation. It's not that cyclical matter. If I can just use a small thing that's been on the agenda ever since, which is bucket toilets. Okay, I agree with the researcher and the presentations made there. It's something that's been there, but when it's normal circumstances, one can track the spending and the progress in eradicating the bucket system. When we have COVID, suddenly money is being shifted around, priorities change, or certain priorities is elevated, and that makes it difficult to track. So we're going to have to realign a little bit. That's my sense in this matter. So what we can do at this point in time is to note these things. And I agree with what the researcher submission. The issue is really, are we delivering on the basic rights? And how does the COVID budget, if I can call it that, or this supplementary budget, affects those? Because certain rights will get more attention than others at this point in time because of the pandemic. But Chair, that shifting or that realignment process and the resolutions that are in the report of the committee, that is what we can do at this point in time, because those resolutions will filter in to the next adjustments budget that we will receive September, October. There we will get the medium-term budget policy statement. So the statements made by this committee today will influence the MTBPS. The reports on the MTBPS and what the committee say about that MTBPS will then also influence the budget that comes February next year. Now, Chair, according to what was just discussed now, those responses from the Minister of Finance to the MTBPS reports, to the reports of this appropriation bill, adjustments appropriation bill, those let's say call it commitments or assurances given by the Minister of Finance, because he must respond to the committee's recommendations. Those are tracked. The resolutions of the committee itself, I think that is the responsibility of support staff of the committee to make sure that those are tracked. Once it goes to the House and the Minister responds, there is a mechanism in the National Assembly staff, in the National Assembly table, to track the responses coming from ministers, assurances given by ministers. So those can be tracked. Now, Chair, this is the background to making an amendment to a budget. When we track all those responses and we see how Parliament dealt with certain issues, again, the one I can mention, the issue of bucket toilet, there are so many at the moment. But those, Chair, is how we make an impact. So it's not really a waste of time to make these recommendations. And in fact, it's very critical that we word the recommendations critically, as well as, I would say, even prioritize it to say, look, these are the 5 most critical areas which the committee want to see an improvement on. The reason I'm saying that is we can't do everything at the same time, Chair. We will have to prioritize with the money that's available in the fiscus, the way I see it. So, Chair, this is what the committee can do. So it's a process. It's not something that we're going to change overnight. And I want to say, even the process we're in at the moment, the impact of COVID, from what I'm hearing, is that we will only see that impact next year, because it's not over yet. So that is what let me say, the effectiveness of what the committee is doing today. So one must see that as a process, and yeah, not the process perhaps is an end in itself, rather than sitting now and saying. But Chair, let me just end with this, is that because it's an extraordinary budget that we're dealing with now, it will be very difficult to amend it based on what we've heard before. I mean, we've dealt with some of these issues in the normal budget of 2020, but whatever happened in 2019 is not going to be really useful to change the budget today. So we'll have to deal with that. That's it, Chair. Thank you very much.
Yes, before you stand down, Advocate Jenkins, there is a concern which has always been there about the effectiveness and the efficiency of the usage of money.
Yes.
Obvious. It's one thing, the allocation of money, but again, the money that is being appropriated. Basically, we are saying we're not getting value for it. And I get type of a frustration from the honorable members. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, Chair, first, let me agree with what was said. It's simple because it's a matter of record. We have changed the Audit Act last year. I think people are quite aware of that. Because of this, because of irregular expenditure, because of continuous wasteful and fruitless expenditure. So the Auditor General can now actually hand out penalties to accounting officers and become more effective. So it's a matter that's been there. It's a matter that's been addressed in legislation. Now it needs to percolate or cipher down or percolate up, how everyone wants to see it, to the administration of government, because that is a matter that's critical. And with emphasis placed by the Minister of Finance on the public wage bill, certainly efficiencies and effectiveness of public service is critical. So it's a frustration, again, Chair. The process of raising these frustrations in recommendations or in resolutions of the committee is part of the process, but it needs to be done. It needs to be done quicker, if I may. This is now a policy matters beyond my pay grade, but it needs to be done more serious than before, because it took us quite a while to change that Public Audit Act to come to the point to say, look, we need to do something about the investment we put in public service. So, Chair, it's not, I want to assure the members, it's not a wasted exercise. I think once the Auditor General, and we're getting a new Auditor General this year, perhaps the new person will place more emphasis, and no offense to the present Auditor General, but I mean, he only recently received those powers. I think the new Auditor General might grow into those powers first day in the office. And once one or two of the exercises of those powers come forward, more accounting officers will take a stronger look at their procurement policies, for instance, and how they do their procurement, because that is critical. How are we spending our money and what are we getting from it? Thank you, Chair. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Advocate Jenkins. Thank you very much, Musa and Sfis and the research team, not Leolo in absentia, to honorable members. Obviously, you have set yourselves quite an agenda, because these things that you are raising are the things that you'll have to follow up on them. You know, there is this thing. People may think that when you go to the departments, you don't have the necessary capacity and brains. My experience is that you do have those people in these departments, but the problems in most of the departments, there's so much fear. People who are up there, the power that they wield is the minister doesn't wield that power, which is the power that you'll find in some of the director generals and DDGs. There is what I call a OR Tambo type of management, which is something that I experienced in my very early ages. In the army setup, as you know, it's very strict. You can't be talking to anybody. When the commander-in-chief of the army at the time, Comrade OR, comes to the camp, ordinarily wouldn't expect an ordinary soldier there to be able to speak to OR. But what OR will do, he'll be moving from one base to the other. And if you are up there lining, the commanders wouldn't like you to talk to OR Tambo. But Tambo will just say, do you have something to say? Speak, let me hear. And people will be free to speak and talk about some of the things which are happening in the camps and so on. And you'll be saying, why are we having a old uniform? Say, no, I've been trying to get it. And the commander will be next to him. Chief, why is he not getting a uniform? I was in Sweden such and such a time and we got so many uniforms. They must be it somewhere in Luanda. I'm just relating that story to say, when you look at the departments, you'll see that there are so many young people who have got brains, they want to deliver and so on, but there's so much fear in those departments. You differ with the boss, you are out. Not with the minister or the deputy minister, with the people who will power, which is, I'll tell you that the ministers don't will power in those departments, right? So I think, again, these are the things that we should look at. Again, there's another thing. Some people are afraid again even to come to the civil service now. They say, if you want to apply for the end of your career, you must go there. But I'm just saying, I'm not answering any of your questions. I'm just sharing with you some of the explanatory variables in this conundrum that we were looking at. But honorable members, I think we've defined the problem. There's a day, I think it's Friday, again, where there's something where we're going to be looking at how we've worked. I'll just request the honorable members to allow us as the management team to look at this thing of Comrade Dipuo, of labor and employment, and see whether we can be able to also accommodate it. I'll tell you why. One of the things which COVID-19 has done is just created crisis as far as employment. We're bleeding jobs left, right, and center. And obviously, there are companies which are taking advantage of that situation. So I think it's something that we may have to look at. If we can't accommodate it now, we'll do as you suggested. But if we can, I think we'll also look into it and see whether we're accommodating it. Honorable members, I think let's leave this one at that. Thank you very much again for the engagement. Can we look at the minutes which were sent to us so that we can start adopting the minutes? The minutes were sent to us, and we looked at them. I suppose. So I want us to start with the minutes of the 17th of June 2020. Can you please, honorable members, go to those minutes? I won't be going page by page. If there's anything on the minutes of the 17th of June 2020, honorable members would like to raise, please indicate. I take it we are having those minutes. Can I have a mover for the adoption of the minutes of the 17th of June 2020?
Yes, Chair Mlenzana.
Mlenzana is moving. Honorable Joseph, please unmute.
I support, Chair. Okay.
There's a seconder from Honorable Joseph.
Second,
the minutes. Okay. Can we then adopt the minutes of the 17th of June 2020 are hereby adopted as the true reflection of that meeting? Can we go to the minutes of the 25th of June 2020? Are we there? Yes, Honorable Kaiso.
As Chair, I want to move for the adoption of the minutes of June 2020.
25 June. 25.
I mean, yes. Okay. Not June.
Yeah, 25 June. 25 June 2020.
So.
Okay. Honorable Kaiso is moving for the adoption of the minutes of the 25th of June 2020. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I've read them.
Was that Honorable Peters?
Yes, I second Honorable Kaiso on the minutes of the 20th of June.
25th.
Is it 25th?
Yes, no, remember.
Oh, yeah, 25th of June.
Okay, thank you. There's a seconder. Can we adopt the minutes as a true reflection of that meeting? Adopted? No. Okay. We move to the minutes of the 8th of July. Minutes of the 8th of July 2020. Again, we have been having those minutes. Can I have a move of the minutes of the 8th of July?
Chairperson.
I so move, Chair.
Honorable Joseph, do you move?
Chairperson, just a question, not problems with the minutes, but just a question on page 13.
Okay, just hold on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just would like to know on page 13, in the middle, the 500 billion relief package. The president raised it as a stimulus package, and we say it's a relief package. I think it's a stimulus package for the relief of COVID-19. So it's just a technical thing I'm raising. Thank you, Chair.
Darren?
Chairperson.
Yes, Darren.
So should I say stimulus package, Chair, or what is the member suggesting?
And I think it's let's live with relief. Let's live with the relief package. I know there's some technical debates around stimulus and so on. Let's say it's a relief package.
Okay, Chair. Just want to clarify. Yeah, thank you. Fine, Chair. Okay with me.
Okay. So Peters, are you moving for the adoption? You on record again?
Yes, Chairperson, I'm moving for the adoption of the minutes of the 8th of July.
Do I have a seconder for the adoption of the minutes of 8th of July?
Mlenzana.
Mlenzana is seconding the adoption of the minutes of 8th July 2020. So the minutes of 8th July 2020 are adopted as a true reflection of that meeting. Then, honorable members, can we go to the minutes of the 9th of July?
Yeah, Chairperson, Dennis here.
Honorable Joseph.
Now, thank you, Chairperson. Again, on page 13, again, the relief or stimulus package, but this time, the second paragraph, the second bullet on page 13, while welcoming the 500 million, it should be 500 billion.
Yeah. Okay. Darren, did you pick up that one?
Chairperson, I'm checking. Is it page 13?
Second bullet.
Okay, bullet. Got it. Changed it, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Joseph. We'll make that amendment. Any other intervention? No. Can we adopt the minutes of the 9th of July?
Yes, I move, Chair.
Honorable Kaiso is moving for the adoption of the minutes of 9th July. Seconder? Honorable Peter?
I second the minutes as proposed by Honorable Kaiso.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. adopt the minutes with the amendments suggested by Honorable Joseph as a true reflection of that meeting. That takes care of the minutes, Honorable members. Darren, I know you have sent us the program, at least for this week. Can you just share with honorable members what is happening tomorrow, Thursday, Friday?
Tomorrow, nothing, Chair. On Thursday at 2, we are meeting with water and sanitation. And on Friday, let me just double check. Where is it now? Nosipo, can you help there, please?
Yeah, but when is the debate tomorrow? No?
I'm not sure, Chair, at what time it's starting.
On Friday is health and social development.
Yes, Chair.
Friday is health and development.
9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
Okay. Members, you know there's debate tomorrow time?
3 o'clock.
Wednesday, Chair, it'll be at 3.
At 3 tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
Good luck to all those who are debating.
Good luck, honorable members.
Sorry, Chair, before you go.
I will not be Member Peters.
Honorable Sheikh.
Yes, Chair, I see that we got water and sanitation. Is that what we're saying on Thursday?
Yes, Chairperson.
Now, Chair, for the last 4.5 years, we have been requesting, Darren is aware of it and Musa is aware of it, where we found corruption alive in Mount.
Come, Honorable Sheikh.
Elephant. We've been asking the audit how much, everything. I don't know if we can request them to bring that report on Thursday again, because they haven't brought it for 4.5 years.
Just repeat, Honorable Sheikh.
Chair, we went on an oversight visit and we found corruption alive in Mount Aleph in the Eastern Cape. We have repeatedly been requesting the department to bring us certain information. Minister after minister has changed, and I agree that ministers have very little power if the DGs that call the shots here. They have not been bringing us that information for us to prove to them what we meant when we found corruption alive when we went there. And they are deliberately not bringing the information, Chair. So I'm suggesting that if they're coming Thursday, maybe we need to remind them they need to bring that information.
Darren, can you please remind the department to bring that report?
I'll do that, Chair. But Chair, they have sent the report and I distributed it. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to check all my old mails now to check where that report is, and then I'll just resend it. Maybe Mr. Sheikh missed it somehow.
No. Can I come in there, Chair? Sorry to do
this. Please do that.
I know about the report they sent, Chair. They didn't give us what we wanted. We told them, let me tell you what happened, Chair. We went there, we found this corruption. They misled us into even taking us to this place. Then we said, can you bring us the document? When did you award the contract? How much was for it? When did you budget for it? Because we found that there was they saved, can you tell me, Chair, out of I think it was, Musa knows whether it was a 600,000 contract, they saved about 300 and some odd thousand or more that thing eventually when we intervened. So we asked them to give us the finer details. When was it awarded? Who was the contractor? How much did you budget for initially for the contract and everything? They didn't give us that yet, Chair.
Okay.
Suggestion, Chair?
Yes.
Yes, Chair. My suggestion, Chair, would be, it looks like this is deeper than what one would have thought of. Why then? Because now I'm looking at the time lapse or the time span between today and the day when we would be with the department, taking into cognizance